Awesome. So I am Olivia. Welcome back to Choosing Recovery. This week's topic is staying sober through the loss of a loved one, and we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, and then we can jump right into the topic. So, Tammy, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Morning, Tammy. I live in Las Vegas. February 8/29/2013.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here today. Leanne, if you want to go ahead.
I'm Leanne. I live in Lewisburg, Tennessee, and my recovery date is 11/6/2020.
Awesome. Glad you're here. And hello, Katie.
Hi, I'm doing my makeup. I apologize.
You're good.
Like, leave you hanging like I've been doing. But I am Katie. I have 3.5 years of sobriety since 9/7/2017.
Awesome. I'm glad everyone is here today. So yeah, the topic is staying sober through the loss of a loved one. Does anybody want to open up the floor and share any experience?
I had 10 years in 2002, and January 2nd. No, I'm sorry, 2001. January 2nd, 2001, my grandmother died, and she was my rock. And no drugs, but I stayed up for 5 days. Couldn't sleep. Was lost a loved one. I dreamt about her, and I finally slept for like 4 days. The first family was like, you know, I don't know what other way could they look at it. But I wasn't, and I continued to stay sober until my dad passed away in 2004. I just lost it. Yeah, 2009, I was 4 days clean, and my fiance, who we were supposed to get married in 3 days, was murdered on his birthday. So I didn't stay clean during that loss. I went out for about 4 years. I've been doing it since August 29th of 2013. And I deal with death a lot more. So that's my story.
Wow, Tammy, I'm glad you're here with us today, because I know that relapse can be a scary thing, and not many people make it back from that. And you've dealt with a lot of pain, loss, and trauma with that. Wow, you've lost quite a few people, and you're still standing today. And the great thing about that is you are able to carry on their name, you know, and share their story as well. So that's pretty incredible too.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Hold on, guys. I did cat.
So I actually, my grandfather, I've never experienced death within my family, just until about a year and a half ago to almost 2 years now. And it was my grandfather on my dad's side, and he, it was hard, but from what I built in the community of being able to listen and just be available to people, it was so important for me to be available for my father, because he was so crushed by his father's death. And of course he was my grandfather too. So, but really during that I learned how much that my dad meant to me, you know, and I was there for him, and I wanted him to be okay. And I was always a show up to work early, stay late, you know, I was the manager, and I was running the store and everything, and I'm just like, at this point was the first time that I was like, I have to leave. And I left, and I went and I was with my father, and I was able to be clear-minded, and I was able to be there for him, and that was so important for me. And I'm so glad I was, because if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't have been able to be there for him when he needed me. And also later on to that, you know, he had some mental health issues that he had to deal with, and still to this day, there's a couple months out of the year that he gets very depressed and very upset. And it's just a hard time for him, you know. So, yeah, it's rough. It's hard to be able to be clear-headed during those times. And I think if you are able to focus and just ask yourself what you can bring to the table for everybody and including yourself, I think that goes a long way. At least for me, it did.
So, September 30th will always be a hard day for me. And I feel it going a week going in and even like a week going out. But yes, I do, after 10 years, so it'll be 12 years this year. After, on the 10th year anniversary, I did a balloon release.
Oh, awesome.
I did a balloon release.
Yep.
And then they have these really cool balloons that are biodegradable now, so it's really great.
Yes.
Even better. So, and my sister's never had she's never been addicted to drugs and alcohol. She's had you know, people have other addictions, right?
Yeah.
Hers was like smoking or whatever, but, we had and this is just recent, we have a childhood friend that, I mean, they've been to school since kindergarten together, and her son was messing in pills a little bit, and I'm like, oh, you know, just pray for him. And it's been a month now. He passed away.
Wow.
And it was from a fentanyl overdose. And but the military picked up. They're investigating it as a suspicious overdose.
Wow.
He had oxycodone, fentanyl in some form, I don't know, but it was, and so I've been over there, so doing service work, right, because his mom is a former alcoholic, she's in recovery, and she's just wanting to pick up, and I'm like, no, it's not an option, but you know, you can do this, you know, so I've been over there, I think, 20 out of the 30 days since you've been gone. So it's really hard those days. When that time of year comes around, it's, you know, never forget. You never forget them because they're the hugest part of your life. Grandparents, parents, loves, and children. So it's important that we never forget them, but to carry on their name in the way that we would want us to go. And that's what I've learned.
And I think that's extremely powerful, is to allow them to live through you, you know, is to be able to keep sharing their name and keep sharing their story, because as much as we're big on having people share their stories because it saves people's lives, and the people that do pass away from an overdose, I always share my friend Jeffrey, because he was too young, and at that point I was literally I was shooting straight fentanyl, and he ended up getting heroin with fentanyl in it, and it killed him. And I remember I was so fucking mad because I didn't know who God was. I honestly didn't give a fuck who God was, but I was pissed at him, right? Like, it was such a weird, but I was like, how could you take him? Like, I play Russian roulette and I shoot fentanyl every day, and then he gets it mixed in with his heroin and it kills him? Make that make sense, you know? And I was so mad. He was 19, you know? And I think being able to carry that on and express to people that there is healing, that you're able to, no matter what age you are. I walked into AA when I was 22 years old. Don't get me wrong, like, drugs definitely were my problem. but I could still be a functioning alcoholic today. AA saved my life, but I walked in there at 22 and I had people look at me like, you're too young. Bitch? You know, like, what?
You know, I had like a similar experience when I first, I was addicted to opiates. That's really what took me down, but kind of like you. I thought I could do other things, and then I ended up going back through treatment in November for alcohol. But when I first started, my friend, her name was Sarah Green, and it's a similar story, you know. Growing up, we were in the Tennessee All Youth Honors Choir together, and then we ended up in treatment at the same time, and then after treatment, we worked together. And she relapsed, and it was the same thing. You know, she had gotten heroin, and it was fentanyl, and it killed her. And so being new in sobriety, I thought, you know, I was like on fire. I'm going to carry her name and do it, but I ended up relapsing, you know, and which makes no sense to me, but none of, you know, what we do in active addiction or alcoholism makes zero sense. But I went out and was doing it, you know, and when I should have seen it as a wake-up call, but you know, I've been off of opiates for 5 years now, but I can now carry her name in the right way and share her story, because it's pretty hard to go and bury one of your friends and then her parents be so accepting, knowing that you were in the same situation. And when her little 3-year-old daughter came up and said that mommy's in heaven, she's not coming back, you know, that broke my heart. And I've had to deal with that. And I recently lost a good friend of mine. It was old age. And, you know, I've just seen it as this is an opportunity. You know, I could have did it one of two ways and went back out, but that's not what he would have wanted. It's not what I wanted anymore. So I just chose to turn to my higher power and stuff, and really AA saved my life too.
I always say that it's easier to stay sober than to get sober again, because I am a full-blown addict, and I know that if I were to ever use again, I don't think I have another recovery in me. I think, like, I'm just so hardcore. Like, I do everything to the extreme, you know, so I that's a saying I live by. It's definitely easy to stay sober no matter how fucking hard it is than to get sober again.
Yeah, I mean, and even after, you know, when I got off of those and was like, I used Sarah's death as an excuse, you know, like, oh, and, you know, I lost my daughter, but she, you know, and then I got off the drugs, but I was still crazy, so I didn't work a program then.
And that's the thing about recovery, is I think that we get opportunity to grow and learn who we are. And even if there was a relapse, just be grateful that you have the opportunity to recover again, you know, and maybe go about it a different way. Me and Scott are huge on people finding their own recovery, right? Yeah. And we're about actually to make a video of, you know, you don't have, if a 12-step doesn't work for you, like, it works for me, you know, that's my experience, is that it saved my life, but I worked the steps, right? Like, I took my life and I put my life on the line, and I made sure that I worked those as best as I could, and that saved my life. But if that's not for you, man, like, just understand that you're enough and you're loved, and figure out what works. You know, there's people that are sober just doing yoga and hiking. You know, that's all power to them. You know what I mean? Like, that's awesome. If that's what works for you, that's freaking phenomenal, right? Like, just find whatever works for you, you know, because you're worth it. You're worth to live.
So I kind of work, I have my own program, and
Yep.
but I think 12 steps would have worked for me, but when I went back into the rooms, the 29th of August, I was 13 stepped right into the room.
See?
And
Exactly.
I never went back, and that, like, I have my son, well, he's not my son, I sponsor him, he stays here with me, because we take care of an 89-year-old lady, so, he just got his 16 months,
Awesome.
and I'm like, well, Anthony, I will go to a meeting with you if that's what you want. He goes, no, Mom, I want what you have. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. I give it away. So, but that's the only reason why the rooms don't work for me. You know,
And there's a lot of...
at a sober living house because I don't go to 12-step programs. And I'm like, I'm good. It's okay. I'll work at you, Mom.
What's 13 step? What is that?
For somebody, 13 steps, this guy actually walked into a bathroom and kissed me, so,
So-
the relationship,
It's like where
I don't go to meetings. I don't do the steps, so I don't know nothing about this.
Katie's like, what the fuck?
it's like when you go in and there's these people that prey on the newcomers and they're like, oh, I can help you stay sober, baby.
yeah,
But really they're just trying to get in your pants.
So they really distract you from yourself, right? And they put you in a lot of, obviously, it's not, people don't go to meetings because they're well, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of sick people
Right.
just chilling and vibing. But, like, there's men that literally will try to take advantage of women, and I've seen it multiple times, and it's scary.
Mhm.
It's scary because it's literally life or death. Like, these people are trying to figure out what, like, trying to stay sober, and you got these men over here trying to, and it's like, ew, they're 2 days sober, leave them the fuck alone. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's disgusting. It's because they prey off it, because they have their own insecurities. We can go on and on with this,
right.
but...
So, I mean, Anthony went into the meetings, right, and I stayed outside and waited for him, right, because it was a men's meeting anyway, so, and then he ended up getting together with this girl that was out, she was shooting pool, so we have pool tables and stuff at the place that we went. Anyway, she was out there, and they ended up picking up, and I said to Anthony, 1 year, you cannot. I firmly believe, why try? I mean, unless you're going to get sober with actually your person, don't try to get into a relationship, a brand new relationship, until you're at least a year. I firmly believe in that. So
I do too. I ended up...
Go ahead.
I definitely, well, I just wanted to relate with you because I definitely believe in that too, because I didn't realize how sick I was, and like now looking back, I'm like, wow, I was fucked up and I didn't even know it, you know, but like I got into a relationship with a very abusive guy, and it was an early recovery, and I'm telling you what, my recovery gave every abuse and every horrible thing that was done and said to me in my childhood, and it validated it. That's what my active addiction was, right? So I continued to abuse myself, and I learned all these habits. Then when I was getting sober, I got into a horrible relationship, obviously, because that's all I've already known, right? And it was just another valid reason to hate myself. And it was just a horrible situation that I could have kept myself away from, but I was in a vulnerable place, you know. I'm glad I got out because it was horrible.
They take the vulnerability of a newcomer and they run with it.
Yeah. Ew.
That's all there is to it.
But they're not all like that everywhere. But there's a lot of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All
They
the
not
rooms
all
are
like
different.
that, but when you go to
there is a lot of it.
But I definitely think it's important too, back with the topic. Oh, Cara's trying to get in. Just to talk about how, like, it is with, oh, my mind went blank. Oh, like, when you know that the anniversary of their death is coming, and how it takes, like, a week before and a week after, and it affects you. I think that's a very important time just to give yourself time, and then to see if there's any positive way to put that pain into something. You know, my sponsor always said paper to pen, right? And write everything down. And I thought it was the dumbest thing. It annoyed the shit right out of me. She always said it. With every problem I ever had, did you write it down? No, I didn't write it down. She's like, well, write it down. I'm like, okay. But the amount of relief that you get from looking at a piece of paper and reading it in black and white, you get to see who you are as a person, and you get to see what mainly is affecting you. Because a lot of things, like, with a loved one that's passed away, like, let's remember the good. Even if it was like a horrible relationship, or you didn't really get along, you can still say, wow, I remember this, like, and take all the good and use that in your life. Because all the negative stuff, write that shit down and let it the fuck go. And then the next year after that, if it's still affecting, just keep doing it. And eventually, like, the amount of relief that I got, that's miracle working right there. Paper and pen, like, it sounds dumb. I thought it was ridiculous. It's amazing. It really is. Hello, Cara.
Hi. Hi, Cara. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you could jump on. So today's topic is staying sober through the loss of a loved one.
Ooh, that's hard.
Yeah.
Do you want me to speak right now? Is that what you want me to do?
Oh, go ahead if you want. Yeah.
Okay. That's a hard one. I had my dad pass away not that long ago. That was hard. He was in active addiction too, right? And he had leukemia. His kidneys were failing. His liver was failing, and I tried to be a part of his life for a long time. You know, I was in active addiction too at that time. But then I got sober, and, you know, he tried to get to know him on a different level, because, you know, I thought because I knew all that stuff, because I was sober now, you know, I know what it's like. I still couldn't understand really, because I was still new to it. I still grieve over it. I still struggle every single day over friends I've lost through fentanyl and all these different drugs, you know. I recently just lost a friend from drinking. He had a really bad drinking problem. He was like 26 years old, and he was trying to stop drinking, and he ended up going to a coma, into a seizure, and then into a coma. They took him to a hospital by plane, and he ended up having a heart attack and dying. So that was really hard, because I'm now into a year and a half of sobriety, and that was my first death. That was serious. You know, that broke me. That was hard. I still think that there has to be different ways to cope. I just heard what you had to say. I'm going to try doing stuff that, you know, helps. So anything you guys have to say, I'll definitely take in. Still trying to cope with all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't even know. I still think about, like, all the deaths that are going to happen. You know, I always try to plan ahead, because I know everybody is using still, and I don't really have many friends, because they all use and are in active addiction. So it's really hard, you know, when you have all your friends that you want to help, but you can't help, because, you know, you can't help somebody that's not ready. You can try, you can be there, you can do whatever you can. Yeah, so we just gotta, you know, try to stay strong and tell them that we're there to support them. But I still struggle with it, you know, every single day. So I mean, as long as I can have my sobriety and do and my meetings, I can get through it. You know, I have my tools. So and my people, my army, you know, behind me, all my friends on this app, on TikTok. I met a lot of good recovery people, and you know, going to Zoom meetings and stuff has changed my life with the coping skills. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. You know, you brought up a good point. Grieving, there's 5 stages to grieving. I can't name them all, but just because there's 5 stages, it doesn't mean that you don't bounce from 1 to 4 and it's like all over the place. And then finally, the 5th stage is when you come to acceptance with it, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard. I didn't know any coping mechanism. You want to know how I coped in my early recovery? Was sex, cigarettes, cutting myself, working a lot. Like, that was my way of distracting myself. And then finally, when I was able to work through my pain and work through the steps and do all those things, I stopped smoking cigarettes. I haven't self-harmed in forever. I took sex and I stopped allowing sex to become an addiction because, you know, it's just, all those things are just as much a way of coping and changing the chemicals in your brain. So I had no idea what I was doing, and it took me a long time to figure out who I was and to figure out what I was going to allow and how to actually cope from things. I cried a lot, all the time, and it was so healing. Honestly, to go into a room and cry in front of people is such a humbling experience, because I've never got looked at like I was crazy. Everybody was like, wow, yeah, like, we've been there, you know, and this is what we did. And that's what I think is great about the community, because everybody has wisdom. You know, everybody has gone through something and they figured out what was horrible and what was good, you know, and this is how they got through it, so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You know, I lost a lot of family growing up, tragically, to murder, suicide, and stuff. And I feel what you're talking about. It's kind of like the week before and daring. You know, it's like all of that.
Yeah.
And I used to, well, once again, I used it as an excuse to justify me getting, you know, high. But when I started working through the steps and stuff, my sponsor said what you said, you know, kind of about reading 417, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today, and that's really what it is. And just, for me, that's what I had to do. I stuffed stuff, and, you know, just that's what she told me to do, was write down and, you know, yeah, mental health sucks.
Yeah.
But that's what's helped me, you know, is just acceptance, really. And know that they were sick, and whatever happened was, I don't like it, but, you know, that pen to paper stuff.
Yeah. That
Getting
stuff's
it out,
rough,
dealing
man.
with it, because stuffing it, it comes right back up, and then you just get in that never-ending cycle.
And
And the
also,
blame
like, the longer you're sober, the more you're gonna remember. And I just hit my 4 years 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and I'm still driving, thank you, I'm still driving down the road and remembering shit from my childhood, before I used drugs, that I didn't remember before. And literally, this is my conversation with myself. Well, it's no wonder why you were fucked up. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not, like, it's a valid reason, but it's not a valid, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay that you're not okay, Olivia. Like, it's okay that you had to go through those things, because, I mean, look at all the shit that you went through. You didn't know any better, you know what I mean? Like, you learned what you were taught, you know? So, yeah, it's rough,
That's so
but,
true.
yeah. And it's scary. I remember my counselor told me that in rehab, and I told her to go fuck herself, because I don't want to remember anything. I was so mad. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Man, when I just started through my step 5, like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and I got to step 8, let me tell you, from step 4 to step 8, it brought up so much memories that I didn't even know were there. Like, I literally had numbed them out for so long with using, to the point where I didn't even remember that I had that happen to me. And I was like sitting here a couple times like last week, and I was really in my head. I was like crying. I was emotional, like mess. And man, I just like, I started thinking about all those things, and I'm like, how the hell do I not remember? Like, how do you not remember? But being an active addiction for so long, you learn how to block those things out. You learn, like, your brain normalizes blocking out every feeling you don't want to feel. So being sober, I'm like over 500 days now, and I still feel like it was just yesterday because I'm learning my feelings, and it's taken that long. Like it's taken that long. So.
And that's a huge point too with losing people in, like, while you're in recovery and you lose somebody that was close to you. Understanding your emotions for me was probably the best thing that probably saved my life, because in recovery I learned who I was as a person. I learned why I was feeling these certain emotions, and I was tying them back to other situations. And then everything made sense though. And I was like, wow. And I've never understood myself more than learning why I feel the way I feel. And then everything up here finally makes sense. You know, so I think the emotions, understanding them, you will be able to take a step back and be like, okay, I just need to give myself time right now, because it's okay to feel, but just to understand what's going on and why. And grieving is a beautiful thing. I mean, we're going to do it the rest of our lives. People die. You know, like, you can't, it's inevitable. Like, you're never going to get away from it. And just acceptance alone. Like, somebody was speaking earlier about acceptance. If you live in a world of acceptance, knowing that you can only control what you can control, which is yourself, you're going to, like, it's so much easier. It really is.
I think that's the hardest part.
Oh, it's so hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I literally every day, like, some days I sit here and I think, like there's so many people still suffering out there, and, you know, addicted so hard, and it's such a shame, man. It's like, and it's so many people that we know, and it's so many people we can't help because they don't want the help. And you know how many people I've tried to reach out to? Like, I gave donations and stuff, like, at Christmas time, just so I could get out there, because, you know, I lived on the streets. I've been through it all, you know, like, I lived in a U-Haul, lived in a storage, I slept on the streets in the pouring rain under a bench, you know, like, I've done so much stuff, and it's sad. It makes me emotional, because, you know, you see all of these people that are, like, from, like, the age of, like, 15 to the age of, like, 70 living on the streets, and it never gets easier seeing it. You can never help them. You know, like, you try your best, you can do whatever you can, you can bring them stuff, but, you know, if they don't want to get help, they can't get help, you know, like, they have to want to do that. And not being able to help is like helping. It's like a baby you can't help, like dangling a candy and saying, no, you can't have it because you can't do anything.
Try with this mindset, and I tell my kid all the time, I will help you as long as you help yourself. So, and he's got 16 months over it, right? So, and now he tells other people if they're suffering, sick and suffering, or, you know, still in active addiction, I'm going to tell you what my mom tells me. I will help you as long as you help yourself. And it works. It works.
It does. I agree. 100%.
I think that love goes a long way. I honestly think that's the answer to a lot of problems in active addiction. That's just my personal opinion. It could be completely wrong, but as I see it, is a lot of people that are broken, weren't loved right, and I could cry just saying that. But yeah, I think I think that I think if we love more people and we show them that they're loved, they'll start loving themselves. And I know that that was a hard thing for me in my active addiction, is I fucking hated myself. Hated myself so much. And it's,
I used to look in the mirror and be like, I used to think I was so ugly to the point where I just, like, believed it, you know? Like, getting sober to see a difference, but frig, man, back in active addiction, I used to hate myself. Like, I think we all did. I think we all went through that hard time. And with somebody, you're right, it has to do with love, because I think, you know, growing up, seeing my parents fight, and my dad beat my mom and stuff, that was hard.
yeah.
So I remember that. I was 5 years old, but, like, I can't remember what happened yesterday, but I can remember those times, and I swear to God, like, seeing how much I wasn't feeling the love back then makes you not feel the love and give the love to other people as well. So I agree with you 100%. It has to do with love.
Yeah. My family, you know, my family, I know they love me, but I was like you. I was out on the street, you know, but it took a while to get to that, and my family got, I guess, sick and tired of my bull crap and just lying, and not that I'm bragging about none of that, but hell, we all did it, you know, and I stole from, you know, some of them, and I think my family took tough love, like, way to the extreme, you know, but I feel like in a way that's kind of what they made me hit that bottom. Like, I literally I lived in my car going into Florida, to Colorado, all over, just freaking insane. And, you know, even this much, I had to remember, you know, it wasn't just me that went through all that stuff. It was all of us, like the deaths and everything. And then here I am being an idiot, you know, I became addicted. But
you were coping the way you knew how.
Huh?
You were coping the way you knew how.
Yeah, the way I knew how, but really all of us that had all this pain. And what my dad actually said to me, the day, like, I left to come back to treatment, he looked at me, and I remember I was just dead, like dead on the inside and whatever. And he was like, you know what, Leanne, you have to love yourself. And I thought, you dickhead, why don't you love me? You know, and he did, sorry. But, you know, my dad was one of those, he still is, but he'd be like, you know, when are you going to get your shirt together? Wow. You know, but really, I mean, I got to look at what I did and see all that and everything that he was dealing with, you know. And my mom, it was almost like I felt it. And I blame my mom a lot of stuff too, and my dad. But there was something about that moment, that statement, that he was like, you need to love yourself. And I was just like, but that's when I was like, oh my gosh. And so it's been a lot different since then. But
so my boyfriend now, he will tell everybody, and I say it too, he loved me enough until I could love myself.
That's what the room said to me. I remember that, and it scared the living daylights out of me. Some older guy looked at me and said, we will love you until you love yourself. And I was like, you are fucked up. Because I don't understand. But they did. You know what I mean? Like, everything that I walked into those meetings with, I was loved, you know, and I was in AA and announcing, and I don't know, I was announcing myself as an addict because, I mean, it's literally the same thing, but whatever. And they accepted me, though, because I know there's a lot of, like, I've walked into AA programs, and they're like, well, we're alcoholics. I'm like, alcohol's a drug. And, you know, like, whatever. But, so, like, but they accepted me, and everything I did, I would cry in front of them, and they would just, like, be so understanding. And I remember I said that one time about my friend that passed away from fentanyl. And I was like, why me? None of it makes sense, this, that, and another thing. And the gentleman next to me looks over at me and goes, well, why not you, Olivia? And I'm like, what? And I was like, wow, like, I'm worth living? Why? You know, like, so it's just amazing what the community brings. Like, they bring that love. And I don't know, that's just amazing. It showed me how to love.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the same way. I was broken and hated myself, and I hated everybody, was angry and bitter, and that's what they told me, and I thought, okay, I don't love myself, and neither does my family. How I'm supposed to listen to you and tell you all my stuff, but they have. my sponsor and this whole community has. So,
Like on my workplace too.
huh?
What's that?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just saying, like, at my worst days, I didn't realize, like, a while ago, like, I just started going to meetings probably, like, 4 weeks ago now, and, it's changed my life so much to the point where, like, I literally live by my meetings. Like, if I don't have a meeting a day, I literally am not okay. And, when I first got into the rooms, like, I tried going to meetings, like, a while ago, and, I always said, I don't really need them. Like, I'm sober. Like, being sober is being sober. There's no difference. Well, there is a difference because when you're sober, you're just not using. But when you're doing your tools and you're going to your meetings and you have those things that help you get through, then you're actually working on your recovery, and that's how you become in your sobriety. Like, that's how you can change your whole life and have a good life. Because I didn't realize being sober was, more work to it. I thought it was just being sober. And seeing the difference and seeing the people in the meetings and seeing people that don't go to meetings and you can just see a difference in people. You can just see, like, the happiness is not there sometimes. And, for me anyways, like, I have a really hard time. I struggle a lot with being happy. My depression is really hard on me. My anxiety is really hard on me. But going to the meetings, it changes me. Like, I instantly get this happiness and this light inside of me. And, that helps me with a lot of coping with a lot of different things. And, yeah, like, I just didn't realize that. So they make you feel like, you're so good and you're so worth it. And, having that light inside of you is exactly what you need. So, yeah, learning to love yourself is a huge thing because we never really did that before. And having the community helps us so much.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tiffany. Oh, go ahead. Tammy, go ahead. I was just going to have Tiffany jump in.
Hi. Hi.
No, Tammy, go ahead. I'm sorry. We can introduce her after.
Okay. So, I was, when I first started my recovery, I was in drug court. It was a justice level court, so like I'm not a felon, right? I requested it, and I had a dog. So first, I'm like the only person in the Las Vegas justice court system that my judge put me into the programs that I needed to put in. Usually you'll go into, like, it's called choices here, but you'll go into choices and they'll set you up with the classes that you have to be in. And they didn't do that with me. They set me in Greek and loss. So that was like mandated by the judge. So I had this dog, and my dog died. He drank a cup of coffee. He was so naughty. And he died 3 days later.
Oh, no.
Caffeine overdose, yeah. And I went in, I talked to my counselor, and he goes, go get another dog. I said, I don't want another fucking dog. And, and he was like, Tammy, if you could turn back the clocks and have your guy back, would you take him? And I'm like, well, absolutely. I mean, that's the love of my life, right? And he's like, go get another dog. So I did. He's in my room right now. I had him. And that was like the first aha moment I had, I think, in recovery, in my earliest recovery, was learning how to deal with death, right? And running with it. So learning how to love something else, my dog. But you can't, even if a dog, a child, a parent, a friend, you can't give them all the love that you don't have for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That does, 100%.
Okay, I'm done. Hi, Tiffany.
Hey, Tiffany, what's good, girl? Woo woo. So today's topic is staying sober through the loss of a loved one. Do you have anything to share?
Oh, you know I do. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Tiffany. I'm from Alabama. Grateful recovering addict and alcoholic. And I love these girls that are on this podcast. They are like the friends that I've needed for so long and never had, and it's great. It's wonderful. They all get my crazy, and there's a lot of it. So that's good.
There is.
It really is, though. It'd be like that. Yeah, I had a high school friend who I have this group of my 5 girlfriends that we went to high school together, and we do a Christmas party every year, and if we don't see each other through the year, then we always see each other at this Christmas party, and we do like dirty Santa and stuff. And my friend reached out last Christmas at our party and said that she finally needed help. She had been drinking since she was 11, doing pills off and on, got really hard on pills. Her dad he was in the medical profession, and he was able to write things for her when she needed them, and he didn't realize the extent of what was going on. But she ultimately drank herself to death at the age of 29. She developed diabetes as a result of that alcoholism, and ended up getting a kidney infection that turned into sepsis, and her body was not strong enough to fight it off. So she dies. And I'm broken. I'm still broken about it. To be honest, it's been one of the hardest deaths that I've ever had to deal with, because of the fact that she did reach out for help. And out of the 5 girls, besides me and her in our friend group, I'm the only one that's one of us. I have another friend in there that her husband and his identical twin brother both overdosed from heroin, but she was a spouse of an addict. So but me and her pretty much were trying to help my friend. And, I would call her and stuff, and every day, and so I talked to her and stuff and everything, and she was like, fixing to go to detox, and I was so excited, and, it just, her dad's got COVID, so I can't go right now, because I can't be away from my family. And I told her that day, I remember telling her, there's going to be a time, they're going to be okay if you're not there while they're in the hospital. They've got nurses and doctors, but if you don't go to detox and do something, they're going to end up losing you. I'll go, I've got plenty of time. And is that not what we all think and what we all thought when we were in the worst of the worst throes of active addiction? Was either it's not going to happen to me, or I got time. I can still do what I want and just hurt a little bit more. And I say all this to say that I also have struggled with bipolar depression and a lot of other mental health issues. And this absolutely threw me stupid. I sit, and honestly, y'all, this group of women, they kept me from drinking that day. And I remember I sent a text on the app, on our group text, and I was like, listen, I'm struggling, I need to talk to somebody. It wasn't just a minute, my phone was blowing up. Okay? And then I'm sitting here talking to Olivia and Alexis, and I remember being like, how stupid can I possibly be? I hate this disease, man. My friend just died from complications of alcoholism, and I'm like, hey, I'm at home by myself. Nobody would know if I went to the gas station and got me one of those really big Lime-A-Ritas and drank it, and then I was just asleep. They'd think I was taking a nap. How this disease, man, it's insanity. I got 3 years sober, and
woo!
That's something I've never really had to deal with a lot. It's thoughts like that. They wouldn't be intrusive. They would come and they would go, but they wouldn't hang around. And this one hung around for a minute until I got to talk to some of my friends, and they talked me off the ledge and made me realize I was crazy, but that other people were crazy too, so it made me feel better. But
we're all crazy.
It's been a month now, and I got all my hair chopped off because I wasn't taking care of myself, and now I have to force myself to do it, so that's another thing. But recognizing the triggers, especially because it's so easy, because we normally, if you are in recovery, you're a dual diagnosis.
Yeah.
Usually you are. And with a loss, whether it's a loved one, a friend, a pet, whatever it is, like, it's really easy to slip back into that depression, and we don't like flat bills. And we don't want to feel that way no more. So instead of using and instead of drinking, I called my girls and laughed my butt off at them and at me and how crazy this disease is. But I didn't have to drink, so I just ate my feelings. And that works too. That's an acceptable.
By the way, girl,
Yeah.
you look great with your haircut.
Thank you.
And
Actually, your hair looks nice. It suits you 100%.
it really, like, it does suit you very well.
You're great.